There's something quietly fascinating about watching people navigate the holiday season with the same energy they'd bring to a Tuesday in March. While others are swept up in the glittering chaos of decorations, family gatherings, and seasonal magic, these individuals move through December with an almost supernatural calm. They show up to work on December 23rd like it's any other day. They respond to holiday party invitations with polite declines that sound more like they're turning down a routine meeting than missing out on celebration. You see them at grocery stores, calmly picking up their regular weekly items while everyone else frantically hunts for cranberry sauce and last-minute gifts. They watch the seasonal frenzy with the detached curiosity of anthropologists studying a foreign culture, not with judgment or superiority, but with a kind of gentle bewilderment at the collective transformation happening around them. These are the people who treat Christmas morning like any other morning, who see New Year's Eve as just another night, who let Thanksgiving pass without feeling the gravitational pull toward gratitude performances or family drama. But here's what most people miss about this phenomenon. It's not indifference. It's not emotional emptiness or holiday depression disguised as casual detachment. The psychology behind this behavior runs much deeper than simple apathy, and understanding it reveals something profound about how different minds process meaning, tradition, and the weight of collective expectation. When someone treats the holidays like a normal day, they're not rejecting joy. They're operating from a completely different emotional architecture than the people around them. Their nervous system has developed a sophisticated filtering mechanism that separates authentic feeling from manufactured enthusiasm. They've learned to distinguish between genuine celebration and performative seasonal behavior, and that distinction changes everything about how they experience these culturally significant moments. Psychologically, this response often develops in people who've experienced what researchers call celebration fatigue. Not the tired feeling that comes after a long party, but the deeper exhaustion that builds when you've been through too many holidays that felt hollow despite all the external markers of joy. Maybe they grew up in families where holiday stress overshadowed holiday magic, where the pressure to feel grateful or merry created more anxiety than actual gratitude or merriment. Or perhaps they've simply reached a point in their emotional development where they need celebrations to feel internally meaningful rather than externally expected. There's also a temporal component that most people overlook. These individuals often have a different relationship with time itself. While others experience the holidays as special interruptions to normal life, they see them as artificial divisions in what is essentially a continuous flow of existence. To them, December 25th doesn't feel fundamentally different from June 15th, because they've developed the capacity to find meaning in ordinary moments rather than waiting for calendar events to deliver significance. This isn't about being a Grinch or lacking festive spirit. It's about having developed what psychologists call internal locus of celebration. Instead of needing external circumstances to create joy, they've learned to generate contentment from within. They don't need permission from a holiday to feel grateful, generous, or reflective. Those emotional states have become integrated into their daily experience rather than reserved for special occasions. What's particularly interesting is how this affects their social dynamics during holiday seasons. They become quiet observers of the collective seasonal transformation, watching friends and family members undergo personality shifts that seem almost ritualistic. The colleague who's normally reserved suddenly becomes the office party organizer. The neighbour who barely makes eye contact all year starts delivering homemade cookies. The family member who struggles with emotional expression suddenly wants to have deep conversations about the year that's passed. They witness this seasonal emotional theatre with a mixture of fascination and distance. Not because they're judgmental, but because they can't access that same switch that allows others to temporarily suspend their regular emotional patterns in favour of holiday versions of themselves. Their emotional consistency becomes both a strength and a source of isolation during these culturally intense periods. The pressure to participate in collective celebration creates a unique form of psychological stress for these individuals. They're constantly navigating the gap between their authentic emotional experience and social expectations. Every declined invitation requires careful explanation to avoid seeming antisocial. Every understated response to holiday enthusiasm needs to be calibrated to avoid dampening others' joy. They become emotional diplomats, managing the delicate balance between being true to themselves and maintaining social harmony. This diplomatic dance reveals something crucial about their psychology. They often possess heightened emotional intelligence, not despite their holiday detachment, but because of it. They've learned to read the emotional needs of others with remarkable accuracy precisely because their own emotional needs don't align with conventional seasonal patterns. They become skilled at supporting others' celebration while protecting their own energy reserves. Many of them have developed sophisticated coping strategies for surviving the holiday season without compromising their emotional authenticity. They might volunteer at shelters or hospitals, finding meaning in service rather than tradition. They could use the time when others are busy with family obligations to pursue personal projects or solitary activities that genuinely nourish them. Some create alternative rituals that feel more aligned with their values, like spending Christmas Day hiking in nature or using New Year's Eve for quiet reflection rather than loud celebration. But perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of their psychology is the subtle grief that sometimes accompanies their emotional distance from holiday traditions. They're not immune to the cultural messaging that suggests this time of year should feel magical and meaningful. Part of them occasionally wonders what it would be like to experience that spontaneous joy that seems to overtake others during the holiday season. They might feel a quiet sadness, not for missing specific celebrations, but for missing the capacity to be swept up in collective emotion. This creates an interesting psychological paradox. They simultaneously feel relief at avoiding holiday stress and a subtle longing for the kind of unreserved enthusiasm they observe in others. They appreciate their emotional independence while occasionally questioning whether they're missing something essential about the human experience. It's not regret exactly, but a kind of curious melancholy about roads not taken or emotional territories left unexplored. The cultural narrative around holidays makes their experience even more complex because there's an assumption that everyone should feel grateful, joyful, and connected during these designated times. When they don't naturally access these emotions on schedule, they can internalize messages that something is wrong with them. They might worry that their emotional patterns indicate depression or detachment, when they're actually demonstrating a different form of psychological health. Their relationship with holiday traditions often reflects broader patterns in how they approach life. They tend to be people who've learned to trust their internal compass more than external guidance. They've developed the capacity to question inherited assumptions about what should make them happy or fulfilled. This critical thinking extends beyond holidays into other areas where they might diverge from conventional expectations about relationships, career paths, or life milestones. Understanding the psychology of people who treat holidays like normal days reveals something important about the diversity of human emotional experience. There's no single correct way to process cultural traditions or find meaning in special occasions. Some people need the external structure of holidays to access deeper emotions, while others find that same structure constraining or artificial. What emerges from this understanding is a recognition that their emotional architecture isn't deficient, it's simply calibrated differently. They've developed what could be called seasonal emotional immunity, not because they're incapable of feeling deeply, but because their depth comes from sources that don't depend on external timing or cultural permission. This psychological pattern often traces back to childhood experiences that taught them to be emotionally self-sufficient. Maybe they grew up in families where holiday expectations created more pressure than pleasure, where the gap between the idealized version of celebrations and the messy reality became too wide to ignore. They learned early that the promise of special days could be unreliable, so they developed the capacity to create their own emotional weather rather than waiting for seasonal storms to pass. There's also something profound happening in their relationship with memory during holiday seasons. While others are actively creating new holiday memories or revisiting cherished ones from the past, these individuals exist in a kind of temporal neutrality. They're neither nostalgic for previous celebrations nor anticipatory about future ones. They occupy a present moment that doesn't need to be enhanced by seasonal significance. This creates a fascinating psychological phenomenon where they become inadvertent witnesses to everyone else's emotional time travel. They watch family members regress into childhood patterns during holiday gatherings. They observe how certain songs or decorations can transport people across decades in seconds, but they remain anchored in the current moment, experiencing holiday events as they unfold rather than as symbols of something else. Their nervous system processes holiday stimulation differently too. Where others might feel energized by twinkling lights and festive music, they often experience sensory fatigue from the increased environmental input. Shopping malls become overwhelming sensory landscapes rather than wonderlands of possibility. Holiday parties feel like emotional marathons rather than joyful gatherings. Their brain prioritizes equilibrium over excitement, which means they need more recovery time from seasonal social demands. This isn't antisocial behaviour, it's neurological self-preservation. They've learned to recognise their own capacity limits and honour them, even when that means disappointing others who expect them to share in collective enthusiasm. They understand that forcing participation in celebrations they don't genuinely connect with depletes their energy for the relationships and activities that do matter to them. What's particularly striking is how this affects their perception of authenticity during holiday seasons. They become acutely aware of the performance aspects of celebration, the ways people seem to put on emotional costumes for the occasion, not because they're cynical, but because their own emotional baseline doesn't shift with the calendar, making everyone else's seasonal transformation more visible by contrast. They notice how conversations change during holidays, becoming more sentimental or more stressed depending on family dynamics. They observe how people's spending habits, social behaviours, and even moral priorities seem to fluctuate based on seasonal expectations. This heightened awareness of seasonal behavioural changes can be both isolating and illuminating, like being the only sober person at a party. Yet within this emotional distance, there's often a deep appreciation for the genuine moments that do emerge during holiday gatherings. Because they're not caught up in the performance of celebration, they're more likely to notice authentic connections when they happen. A quiet conversation between cousins, a moment of real laughter that breaks through forced merriment, the subtle relief on someone's face when the formal festivities wind down and people can just be themselves again. Their gift, if you can call it that, is the ability to separate the wheat from the chaff in human interactions. They become connoisseurs of genuine emotion, capable of recognizing real joy or gratitude when it appears amidst all the seasonal theatre. This makes them valuable friends and family members, even if their value isn't always understood or appreciated by those around them. The loneliness they sometimes experience isn't about being alone during holidays, it's about being emotionally alone in crowds of celebrating people. They can be surrounded by family and friends while feeling like they're watching everything through glass. Not because they don't care about the people around them, but because they can't access the same emotional frequency that everyone else seems to be tuning into. This creates a particular kind of psychological endurance test during extended holiday seasons. They have to maintain their emotional authenticity while navigating weeks or months of social interactions that feel slightly off-key to them. They become skilled at emotional code switching, presenting appropriate responses to holiday enthusiasm while internally remaining centered in their own steady emotional rhythm. Some develop what could be called holiday empathy, where they learn to appreciate others' seasonal joy vicariously, even when they can't directly access it themselves. They might not feel the magic of Christmas morning, but they can genuinely delight in watching a child's excitement over presents. They don't experience New Year's Eve as transformative, but they can appreciate the hope and renewal that others find in the arbitrary changing of calendar pages. This vicarious participation becomes a way of staying connected to the human experience of celebration without compromising their own emotional integrity. They learn to find meaning in witnessing joy rather than requiring themselves to manufacture it. It's a sophisticated form of emotional intelligence that allows them to participate in community celebrations while honouring their own psychological needs. The most profound aspect of their psychology emerges in how they process the concept of special versus ordinary. While the culture around them operates on the assumption that certain days carry inherent magic, they've developed what researchers might call temporal egalitarianism. Every day holds the same potential for meaning, connection, and joy. December the 25th isn't diminished in their experience. It's simply not elevated above any other day when authentic moments might unfold. This creates a fascinating paradox in their relationships with people who do experience seasonal emotional shifts. They often become the stable centre around which others' holiday emotions orbit. Family members know they can count on them to remain consistent, neither swept up in seasonal euphoria nor crashed by holiday disappointment. They're the ones who remember to check on relatives who might be struggling while everyone else is focused on celebration logistics. But this emotional stability comes with its own psychological cost. They carry the invisible burden of being everyone's emotional anchor during times when they might need anchoring themselves. The assumption that they're unaffected by seasonal dynamics means their own subtle needs for connection and understanding often go unnoticed. They become emotional infrastructure, so reliable that their own maintenance requirements become invisible to those who depend on them. Their relationship with gift-giving reveals another layer of their psychological complexity. while others might experience the joy of both giving and receiving within the structured holiday framework. These individuals often feel more genuine pleasure in spontaneous acts of generosity throughout the year. A book given in March, because it reminded them of a friend, feels more meaningful than obligatory December exchanges. They prefer organic expressions of care over scheduled demonstrations of affection. This extends to how they process gratitude as well. The cultural imperative to feel especially thankful during designated Thanksgiving periods can feel artificial to them. They've developed the capacity to notice and appreciate small kindnesses continuously, rather than reserving gratitude for seasonal expressions. The sunset on a random Tuesday in July might move them more deeply than any holiday tradition ever could. What's particularly interesting is how their nervous system responds to the anticipatory energy that builds around holidays. While others experience mounting excitement or anxiety as special dates approach, they remain in a kind of emotional neutral. They don't feel the countdown pressure that drives so much holiday behavior. Christmas Eve feels like any other evening. New Year's approaches without the weight of impending transformation or reflection. This temporal neutrality affects their memory formation in fascinating ways. They're less likely to organise their memories around holiday milestones, because those dates don't serve as natural bookmark points in their emotional landscape. Instead of remembering the Christmas when something significant happened, they might recall the specific season, or weather pattern, or life circumstance that surrounded an important moment. Their brain doesn't use cultural celebrations as filing systems for personal history. This creates a more fluid, less compartmentalized approach to autobiographical memory. They might have clearer recollections of ordinary moments that others would forget because they weren't competing with holiday significance for mental storage space. The social dynamics become even more complex when they're in romantic relationships with people who do experience strong seasonal emotions. They might find themselves managing partners who transform during holiday seasons, becoming more sentimental, more stressed, or more socially demanding. Learning to support someone's holiday enthusiasm without feeling obligated to match it requires sophisticated emotional navigation. They develop skills in what could be called celebratory translation. They learn to recognize that their partner's need for holiday traditions isn't about the specific rituals, but about accessing certain emotional states or connecting with personal history. They might participate in Christmas morning routines not because the date matters to them, but because they understand it matters to someone they love. This translation ability extends to their role in families where they might become bridges between generations with different relationships to tradition. They can appreciate why grandparents find comfort in familiar holiday patterns, while also understanding why younger family members might feel constrained by those same traditions. Their emotional neutrality allows them to see multiple perspectives without being invested in any particular outcome. Yet beneath this diplomatic flexibility often lies a quiet wish to experience the kind of spontaneous seasonal joy that seems to transform others, not because they think their own emotional patterns are wrong, but because they're curious about what that kind of collective emotional experience might feel like. They wonder about the neurochemistry of holiday magic, the way certain combinations of memory, tradition, and social energy can create altered states of happiness in others. This curiosity doesn't translate into envy exactly, but rather into a kind of anthropological fascination with their own emotional differences. They might study their own responses during holiday gatherings, the way a scientist might observe an interesting specimen. Why doesn't this music affect me the way it affects others? What is it about twinkling lights that creates such powerful emotional responses in some people, but not in me? Their self-awareness extends to recognizing the subtle ways they do participate in seasonal rhythms, even when they don't experience dramatic emotional shifts. They might notice they sleep differently when days get shorter, or that their creativity fluctuates with seasonal light changes. They're not immune to environmental influences, they just don't experience them as emotionally charged or culturally significant. This nuanced self-understanding helps them navigate the assumptions others make about their holiday experience. They learn to explain that not feeling Christmas magic doesn't mean they're depressed or lacking in spiritual depth. It means their emotional and spiritual systems are calibrated differently, finding transcendence in daily moments rather than designated celebrations. The pressure to explain or justify their emotional patterns becomes one of the hidden challenges of their psychology during holiday seasons. Well-meaning friends and family members often try to help them access seasonal joy, suggesting activities or traditions that might spark holiday feelings. These interventions, while caring, can feel like attempts to fix something that isn't broken. They develop gentle ways to deflect these helpful suggestions while maintaining relationships. They learn to express appreciation for others' concern without accepting the premise that their experience needs correction. This requires ongoing emotional labour throughout seasons when everyone around them seems to be operating from a different emotional playbook. Their professional lives during holiday seasons often provide relief from the social expectations that dominate personal relationships. Work environments, even decorated ones, maintain enough normal structure to feel comfortable for people who prefer emotional consistency. They might volunteer for holiday shifts that others avoid, finding peace in the familiar rhythms of productivity while everyone else focuses on celebration. The aftermath of holiday seasons can be particularly revealing of their psychological patterns. While others experience post-holiday depression or the letdown that follows intense celebration, they transition back to regular life without emotional turbulence. January feels like a natural continuation of December, rather than a jarring shift from magical time back to ordinary reality. This smooth transition can make them valuable sources of stability for friends and family members struggling with post-holiday adjustment. They offer steady emotional ground for others who might be processing the gap between holiday expectations and holiday reality, or dealing with the practical aftermath of seasonal excess. Understanding their psychology reveals how much individual variation exists in human emotional architecture. Their experience challenges assumptions about universal responses to cultural traditions, while demonstrating that emotional authenticity can take many different forms. They remind us that there's no single correct way to experience significance, connection, or joy. Their quiet presence during holiday seasons serves a function that's often invisible but essential. They provide alternative models for how to move through culturally intense periods with integrity and calm. They demonstrate that it's possible to care deeply about people while remaining true to your own emotional rhythms, even when those rhythms don't align with collective expectations. Perhaps most importantly, they show us that treating holidays like normal days isn't about rejecting meaning or community. It's about finding both meaning and community through different pathways, ones that don't require external permission or cultural timing to access the deeper human experiences we're all seeking. So perhaps the most profound gift these individuals offer the rest of us isn't their participation in our seasonal celebrations, but their quiet reminder that meaning doesn't need a calendar to exist, that joy doesn't require permission from tradition to be real, that connection can happen on any Tuesday in March just as powerfully as it can on Christmas morning. They show us something we often forget in our rush toward designated meaning-making moments, that the capacity for gratitude, wonder, and deep human connection lives within us every single day, waiting not for special occasions to activate it, but for our simple willingness to notice what's already there. Their psychology isn't a rejection of what makes life beautiful, it's a different pathway to the same destination. While others climb the mountain of meaning through the well-worn trails of tradition and collective celebration, they found their own route through the quiet valleys of ordinary moments and authentic presence. And maybe that's exactly what our celebration-saturated culture needs. A gentle reminder that the extraordinary doesn't always announce itself with fanfare and twinkling lights. Sometimes it whispers through the simple act of showing up consistently for the people we love, regardless of what day the calendar says it is. Sometimes the most profound magic happens when we stop waiting for magic to happen and start recognizing that we've been living inside it all along.